Hello, Rico. How are you?
What's going on, Shayna?
Chilling, chilling. Thank you for coming on to So What's Your Story?
You already know.
Yeah, and today's a special day for you.
Yeah, today's my birthday, so I'm gonna knock this
Happy
interview out and
birthday.
head out on the town.
Okay, don't do too much.
No, no.
All
Relax.
right. So let's get right into it. So what's your story? What's your background? Where you from?
So, I'm originally from right here in Wilmington, Delaware. Born in Christiana Hospital. Um, Mother was actually born in Puerto Rico. My father was born right here in Wilmington, Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, so a lot of my time has been spent here. I did live a few years in Chicago, um,
Okay.
which I was a child when that time was going on. It's probably about 3 years old when we moved to Chicago for 2 years. But since then, I've been back here, man. This is my home, and
Okay.
yeah, that's where I'm at.
How many times have you visited Puerto Rico?
I've been, I can't even recall. I've gone so many. So I have a property out there in Bayamon. So my mom's side of the family is from Bayamon, Puerto Rico.
Okay.
My father's side of the family is actually from South Carolina.
Okay.
And then they migrated here to Delaware. Um, so when it comes to Puerto Rico, I've spent a lot of time there. My mom, she didn't come here to the States until she was about 17. And so most of my family on that side of the family still lives or resides in Puerto Rico, or they have some kind of residency in Puerto Rico. So, it's like a second home for me and my family.
You speak fluent Spanish?
Yeah, so I speak fluent Spanish. Some may call it conversational, but it's more than a little bit. I actually have a translation business right here in
Awesome.
Wilmington.
What's the
That's
name of it?
Mundo Latino Habla Español.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's dope.
so our market, our client base is, of course, Hispanic, and we service from things such as translating documents all the way to helping people with citizenship. So, we're kind of across the
Wow.
board when it comes to trying to help the Hispanic culture.
Is there like a website or some way of them to get in touch with you in regards to
Uh,
that?
our website is currently under construction.
Mm.
However, we are on social media platforms. If you go on Facebook, we're on there as well as Instagram.
And what's the
So
handle?
the handle is Mundo Latino Habla Español.
Okay. All one word, no spacing.
Spacing with Habla Español.
Okay.
So Mundo Latino, one word, and then Habla Español. The logo is green, black, and white. So it's highly
Gotcha.
noticeable. Yeah.
Awesome. I love to plug that on my website as well. So if you could send me that information. As far as your parents go, how were they raised?
So it's kind of, they kind of were raised similar in the sense of disciplinary action.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom being from Puerto Rico, a lot of her upbringing was on the countryside. They were washing clothes in the river. They were still, milking cows and goats, and you
Oh,
know,
wow.
you know, killing their own livestock and prepping their own food from, animals that are right there in their dwelling. So she and my grandfather and all of them were really brought up on like intense labor and
Mm-hmm.
just having a strong work ethic because of it. And then when I look at my dad's side of the family, because I guess they lived in the States, it wasn't as needed for them to go out there and, of course, hunt their own animals down and kill So,
Right.
you know, it was just a little bit different. So when I compared it to, I look at it and I say, like, my mom's side of the family, a lot of them are business owners now. A lot of them are, you know, not saying that my dad's side isn't hard working or anything like that. I'm just saying that the upbringing was a little bit different because of the environment they were in.
Okay.
So in Puerto Rico, it's very mountainous.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a lot of the things that you're doing, you know, you're on mountainsides, you know, it's constantly intense labor if you're doing stuff outside because of the heat and everything. So I just think that people there who are actually motivated, they have a different mindset when it comes to their day to day and, you know, their intent for the day. And so I've noticed that just in family members from both sides.
Right. Okay. So your Puerto Rican side, do you know much about the ancestral roots, like Tainos?
Yeah, so that was one big thing that I wanted to look into as I got older, is the history of the Taino people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I've realized was those native people, man, they really left a lot to the island, not only with different sculptures and things like that, but also with the culture and traditions that we still carry on to this day. So that's something that I'm making a quest of my own, just to find
Okay.
out more about the Taino people. And you know, as we all know, the Spaniards came and conquered Puerto Rico.
Right.
And at that time, those native people there were Taino people. Well, the name of Puerto Rico was changed after the Spaniards conquered it, to Rich Port, because actually Puerto Rico had one of the highest amounts of gold in the Caribbeans at that time. And so because of that, the Spaniards named it Rich Port. But yeah, there's a lot about the Taino people that I want to find out about. I want to find out how they made link to Mayans or Aztec, or even the Native American Indians that we know and love here in the States. So, you know, it's a very interesting culture that I believe that was kind of swept under the rug, you know, because
Yeah.
you don't hear, especially in the States, you don't hear a lot of Hispanics, or let's just specifically Puerto Ricans, talking about the Taino culture or anything like that. So I think a lot of things were lost. Same thing, you know, when we think about Blacks in America and culture and traditions that were lost through slavery and conditioning. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
most definitely.
yeah. So
Have you heard about the new study about the DNA of the Tainos?
I remember you. I think it was you that was telling me a little bit about that. That they found the DNA in a few people.
Yeah, and
I mean,
and people that's living now.
oh yeah. Well, I know that's more than likely true. I mean, we talking about 500 years ago. I was just talking to somebody earlier today when we were talking about like generation, and we were talking about Black culture in America.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was explaining to him was like, in the next 200 years, we'll be able to look back as people and say that we've developed culture, but currently we're developing culture. And so I say all that to say, like, when you think about the Taino people, we're talking about maybe 5 or 6 generations of people, you know, maybe 7 generations of people, um, who came before us that were purebred Taino people.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's not that long ago. So it's not that too surprising to see that the bloodline is still there.
Got you. So let's get into your personal life. So were you brought up like in an impoverished lifestyle? Were you well off? Did you grow up in the middle class?
I would consider myself middle class. I mean, I never felt like I lived in poverty. I've seen poverty, and I wouldn't consider myself or the life that I've lived povertized. But I mean, there still was struggle. I grew up in a single parent home. And, I think that a lot of the cultures and the ways of my mother and the strictness of her parents really played a part in how I became who I am today. And so that Hispanic side really played a big part in, my discipline and how I act towards people, how I act towards my elders. So, yeah. So, I mean, growing up, I would say middle class. My mother, she worked for Tom Carper. So she had a lot of political positioning as I was growing up. So, I mean, I was able to rub shoulders with a lot of people as a young person in the city. Um, you know, just by her having those different job titles that she had over the years.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. I am the second youngest.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I got a call that keeps coming in. I'm the second youngest. And so I have two older brothers, an older sister, and then a younger brother. And so out of those, we're all half siblings. So
okay.
My 3 brothers, we all have the same father. And then my sister, we have the same mother.
Okay. Appearance wise, do y'all resemble?
I think I resemble my mom a little bit, my dad a little bit. I mean, I guess both of them. I'm a blend of both of them.
Okay. So when you're out in the public, like, are you passing as a Puerto Rican, or you passing as Black, or do they know that you're mixed? Do you have any issues with that? If you know?
I mean, it's funny because when I'm around Blacks, of course, they assume that I'm mixed. And they ask me, am I Dominican? Am I, a lot of people ask me if I'm Hebrew.
But, everything but what you are.
Yeah, but when I'm around Hispanics, until I speak Spanish, they just consider me as Black. So growing up like around Hispanics, a lot of the times they would call me negro or moreno. You know what I mean? The older Hispanics would call me moreno. Yeah, I mean, or negro. Yeah, I mean, and that's like kind of like the Spanish culture. They call the darker skinned Hispanics that,
Right. Now, do you take offense to that?
Because I heard it my entire life, not really, but there's times when it can be a little irritating depending on who says it and how it's said. But oftentimes it was said by family members. So it wasn't like random people came up and said it.
Okay. So if somebody random did say that, would that be an issue?
For me?
Yeah, for you.
Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt. Listen, my big thing is this, like, when we really look at it, and when we look at race, like for me, when I look at race, I break race down. Hold on for 1 second. I break race down. More so by like where you're. For me, I consider myself an American. Even though my ethnicity would be considered, Black and Hispanic, I consider myself an American. So when somebody tries to profile me, it doesn't bother me because I know who I am.
It doesn't bother you, but would it bother somebody else in your family, like your sister?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's been occasions where people have said things and someone in my family has stepped in, or, because they could feel the uncomfort. Because oftentimes, like, especially when you're around friends of the family or other family members that may not see you all the time, you don't want to be the one that's darker complexioned and acting out all crazy. So
Right.
That can be a challenge too. I mean, because racism is alive, and I hear a lot from from like my mom's side that they weren't introduced to racism until they got into the States. but what I'm noticing now, especially in some parts of Puerto Rico, is that um, a lot of those older generational people are, you know, to me, a little racist.
And it's interesting because like when I look into the history of like the Tainos, like Puerto Ricans are, they say they're all mixed of all different kind of cultures and races and stuff, right? But then I look into like, you know, like the older generations, and there's like a light skin versus dark skin. Like if you got curly hair, you're Negro, and you know, stuff like that. It's quite interesting because aren't we supposed to all be mixed?
Yeah. Well, the problem is, and for me, that's all about classism
Mm-hmm.
and how colorism has been used as a gateway to classism. And so it's kind of one of them things where it's like, you know, if I'm a lighter complexion person, I'm supposed to be able to have more opportunities. And so they utilize that
Mm-hmm.
as a classist way of trying to categorize food, you know?
So I know you said you're pretty good with, you know, Spanish and all that. Do you think if you didn't know the language that you would have a harder problem
Yes,
with the
I know
Spanish
for sure.
community?
I know
Okay.
for sure because just even being a business owner working with translating for people, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when you walk into a room and you see me in person, I don't come off as a Hispanic. I come off as more as a Black American. I don't seem like I know English. I mean, I'm sorry, English, Spanish that much. Um, but when I start speaking Spanish to the clients, you can see the comfort starting to develop. You can see that they start to develop trust. And when they
Mm-hmm.
realize that, okay, this guy, he understands me, he relates, because really it's about relating. And that communication is a big factor. And so, you know, if you can communicate to someone well, of course you can earn that person's trust most cases. So for me, like knowing Spanish is very important. When I go to Puerto Rico and I speak Spanish, people treat me like people from there, you know what I mean? And I've had one time where I've had someone actually walk up to me, no lie, and they were attempting or going to attempt to rob me. And
Until you start speaking Spanish?
I started speaking Spanish to him, and I told him I was from Bayamon in Spanish. And and his response to me was, "Oh, my fault, my man." In Spanish, he's telling me, "Oh, my fault, my man. I thought you were an American guy."
Wow.
Yes, and this was in San Juan. So
Wow, that's interesting.
so you know, knowing Spanish, knowing any foreign language outside of your own is a major key,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll get you a lot farther in life. But you know, for me and the people that I'm around, knowing, and it's crazy because it wasn't like, you know, because my mother married a Black man. Well, they didn't marry, but because my father is Black and because the relationship they had and had to have, like, I was around a lot of English. So
Right.
Spanish growing up was a second language, even though my primary home was a Spanish home. And so, you know, my development of the language over the years was a little bit slower because my
Was it
mother
more
spoke.
Spanglish?
It was more Spanglish.
Okay.
It was more Spanglish. So it started off with me just being able to understand what you're saying, but not responding.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, you know, reading and writing the language more, you start to pick up on words and you start to know how to you know, put together sentences better. And then I felt a little bit more comfortable over the years. And as time grew on, I went from not being able to speak well to conversational to being a lot more fluent in my conversation.
Awesome. So I'm not gonna hold you long because I know it's your birthday. I just got
Yes.
2 more questions. Okay.
Okay.
One,
Okay.
can you give us some of your favorites Spanish foods?
So, okay. Um, So one of my favorite, and it wouldn't be considered like a main dish
Mm,
for some. Some people, it might be a main dish, but it's pastelón, which
pastelón.
is, yes, which is like a Spanish lasagna. Instead of using the noodles on the lasagna, you use plantains, and it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Interest. I never. Hold on. You done put me on to something.
Yes, it's good. It's
You
good.
use
It's
the
like
plantains
use the
instead?
plantains. Oh, delicious. Delicious.
What? Okay, I'm gonna have to try some. Well, I don't eat meat, so I'm gonna have to change the
But you
ground
can
beef.
switch it up. You can chickpeas
Okay.
or something like that. Yeah. So I'm actually transitioning to a plant-based diet. I'm gonna start off pescatarian. Get out of there. I got two dogs and they don't like to stop playing with each other, man. Yeah,
Never
so
heard of that. So it's called pastelón.
yes. And then
Okay.
my favorite dish would be probably mofongo.
Oh yeah, I love mofongo. I get the shrimp
So
mofongo all the
mofongo
time.
con camarones. Yes, that's what I love.
Mm.
Yeah. So want to
Okay.
find a yes. You want to make me smile. Just bring some mofongo with shrimp, and I'll be a happy man.
All right, I got you. I got you for your birthday, by the way.
Okay. Okay.
So last question. Are you into Latin music? Do you listen to reggaeton? Do you listen to different variations of Hispanic music?
Yes, I do. So I listen to all really bachata, reggaeton, salsa, merengue, whatever mood I'm in that day, I'll listen to it. I heavily enjoy the music. I love the sound. Rock out.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we need to take a few trips to Puerto Rico, show some other people our culture.
I'm
And
going.
since
I'm
you
going to Puerto Rico December 8th through the
okay,
14th. So yeah,
okay. And since you know Spanish, you can help us along the way.
exactly. I've done that on so many occasions. You wouldn't believe the facial expressions I've seen from people in Mexico when they see me talk to them in Spanish. Yo,
They
it's the
shocked, right? They're
funniest.
like,
It's the funniest. People really call me, and when they travel to like Hispanic countries, they
mm-hmm.
call me, Freak, I'm going here. Do you want to go? Because we need a translator. I'm like, yo.
You gotta start charging.
I charge. Room and board.
Facts. Well, all
Yeah,
right. Well, I appreciate you for coming on and telling us a little about your story.
no
I'm
doubt.
excited because we are doing a documentary about Afro-Latinx culture. So hopefully you'll be able to join that.
No doubt.
Enjoy your birthday. How can people get a hold of you?
If you want to get a hold of me, you can catch me on social media. My handle is Rico Tang 302. That's RICO T as in Tom ANG 302. And I will answer any questions or inquiries.
Cool. So catch you next time. Don't drink too much.
Peace.
All right. Bye.